Hello, today is Friday, September 13th, and welcome to episode 359 of Fault Lines, the National Security and Suits podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI founder and executive director Jamil Jaffer, and I'm joined today by NSI fellows Jessica Jones, Lester Munson, and Morgan Vina. A couple of them, by the way, are senior fellows. So, folks, today we are talking about Vladimir Putin. He tends to be a real repeat offender on our podcast, and that's because he's invaded another country 2 years ago, Ukraine, and we've gotten essentially into a fight with him by supplying a tremendous amount of weapons, we being the United States, NATO, and our allies, by supplying a tremendous amount of weapons to the Ukrainians. Now, what is changing? Well, Keir Starmer, the new prime minister of Britain, is coming to visit the United States, and apparently he wants to sell Storm Shadow missiles to Ukraine to use in the fight against Russia. These are long-range missiles that have the ability to hit Moscow, hit deep into Russian lines, take out their supply chains, hit their lines of communication, and could change the game on the battlefield for the Ukrainians. So the Brits want to do this. Now, this is not the first time the Brits have leaned more forward than the United States. If you remember back to the battle tanks, when the U.S. was saying, if we give them M1 Abrams, Russia's going to use nuclear weapons, or if we give them longer range missiles, ATACMS or HIMARS, they're going to use nuclear weapons. Well, the Brits and other Europeans leaned forward. They talked about Challenger tanks. They talked about Leopards, and eventually we got in the fight. We gave them M1 Abrams. Same thing happened with F-16s, and now it looks like it might happen on missiles. For his part, Vladimir Putin says, if this happens, he will be at war with NATO, that NATO is essentially fighting Russia, which is an interesting position for him to take, because if he were to fight a war with NATO, he would almost certainly lose. And in the course of all this, just in the last day or so, he has kicked out British diplomats from Russia, saying that they're spying. This may be an effort to sort of push back diplomatically. So with that, Jessica, what do we make of all this? Is NATO going to be at war with Vladimir Putin? Are we already at war with Russia if we supply the missiles, or even if we don't? And are we actually going to do this, or is this just another Biden administration trial balloon to push Putin into saying, I'm going to go to war, and then we all back off?
I think, you see kind of Russia in a hard position and the inability of a nuclear power to actually be effective, right? Putin has laid out a bunch of red lines, whether that was F-16s, whether that was the invasion of the Russian territory. And those red lines have passed, right? And they might have been slow to pass, but they did pass, and nothing has happened. In fact, Russia's now, it's relying on Iranian and North Korean military support to get through this. They're just trying to outlast the West, right? And so you see that they're unable to, actually have an effective response. And so I don't believe the red lines. Like, war with NATO, he can't win a war with Ukraine. What would he do if Russia was actually at war with NATO? That seems like a really bad position for him to take. And so I think it's just more bluster. And I do want to get everyone's take whether we think the Biden administration will go through. We are coming up to an election, shortly, and we don't know who's going to win. We don't know what support for Ukraine will look like in the coming year. And so I'm a little more optimistic than I'd usually be that the Biden administration will actually pull through on this, and we'll get an announcement shortly.
Well, you've told us repeatedly before that everything the Biden administration is doing at this point in the game is all about the elections. Is this about elections too? And if so, are they trying to press forward and actually send weapons, or get the Brits to send weapons? Or are they trying to lean back and say, oh, Putin will just say he's going to go to war, and then we'll be able to back off and it'll all make it all better? Because I think we know where Donald Trump is on this, but maybe not.
So, yes, every single thing the administration does and says at this point and for the next month and a half or so is entirely about the election. Everything goes through the lens of, is this good or bad for Kamala Harris and her campaign against Donald Trump? So let's not fool ourselves. It's extraordinarily political. When it comes to the actual policy, this remains the same muddle it has been for the last 2.5 years, basically, where the administration is unwilling to give the Ukrainians the things that will make a big difference on the battlefield because they don't want to escalate against the Russians, supposedly. What they're really trying to do is punt this beyond the election, get Kamala Harris in office, and sort things out at that point. So I think they're happy to keep the focus on the allegedly bad Trump-Vance congressional Republican approach to whatever part of this, instead of their own very poor record of decision-making when it comes to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
Well, Morgan, what about that? I mean, where is Donald Trump on all this? If it were his decision, would he pull back and say, Brits, you cannot sell them? If you sell them, we're going to pull out. We're not going to be part of NATO. We're not going to be part of a war against Russia. Like, where's Trump going to end up on this? And is it really just about electoral politics, or will this make a difference regardless of who's elected, whether it's Harris or Trump, after the election?
Yeah, Jamil, thanks for that. And I think everyone's analysis here is really, really enlightening. It's, I think, some of the better analysis that we've had as of late with respect to the Ukraine war. I will say that this has to be viewed through the context of the election, right? For Biden's part, look, I will believe it when I see it. I think it's pretty telling that it's the UK that stepped up and has been pressing the administration to sell these long range weapons to Ukraine. I'll believe it when I see it. I would love for that to happen. Will it make a difference? Yeah, maybe like 2 years ago. So truly, like while that's truly the right decision, I don't know if it'll happen. I don't have a lot of faith or confidence that it actually will. I do actually believe side with Les on this, that I think that there's a lot of messaging here, but at the same time, I'd love for it to happen, but I'm not sure it'll make a difference. On the Trump side, look, Trump wants a negotiation. Trump wants to he wants to see the end of this, and I think if Trump were to win the election, I think our NATO partners would be, who Trump has been openly hostile to, would try to rethink how they position themselves in this war, and how their support of Ukraine will ultimately affect their own security.
Can I just say how great it is that we're getting positive Morgan on Friday the 13th, when the rest of the time it's not quite positive Morgan.
Wait, that's not nice.
That was the opposite of Fun Friday, Les.
I know.
It's
Les,
like we're through the looking glass here.
I say something nice to you, Les, and all of a sudden you're like,
she'll
I'm
never agree with you again.
This is me celebrating. This is me celebrating your positivity.
Ridiculous.
Seriously, I think the Trump position, such as it is to maintain flexibility for him for if he gets reelected to office.
Totally disagree.
Understandable.
Totally disagree.
You're wrong. You're wrong to disagree with me. Trump's trying to maintain flexibility, and if his general thesis is we should position ourselves to move quickly to get this thing to a negotiated settlement quickly, good for him. That makes more sense than what the administration is doing.
No, I don't disagree that it makes more sense than what the administration is doing, but his solution to getting the conflict over quickly is pull everything, force Ukraine to capitulate. That is terrible.
That is not. There's no evidence of that. There's no
except what he says.
Except what he never said that. He has never said that. He has never said that. That's what all of the Democrats and all of the folks who are trying to advance the administration line say about him. That is true, but it is not what he has actually said.
His vice presidential candidate has supported that position for the better part of 2.5 years. So please give me a break.
Well, I am not in favor of J.D. Vance, and I don't like the stuff that he says, but Trump has not said that. And I can't believe you're putting me in the position of having to defend him. Please don't do that anymore.
Well, guys, at least we've identified a fault lines, even if Morgan and Les are getting along on this one. So that's a wrap. Thanks so much to Devlin Burney, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us again on Monday, September 16th, for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. Fault Lines is now on YouTube, so check out our channel for a video of today's episodes. If you like what you saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And by the way, in the next few weeks, there will be a new Fault Lines theme song, so keep your ears open. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but get ready.
Very excited.
Get ready. And by the way, we maybe will have a competition and see if people can compete over what they think the Fault Lines theme song is going to be. And if they win, we'll send you some swag. Have a great weekend, folks.
Go ahead and fire away.
See you Monday.